Broken down over time, the LGBT population of America seems to be roughly doubling every generation. According to a recent Gallup poll, less than 1% of Americans born before 1946, that's Joe Biden's generation, identify that way. 2.6% of boomers do, 4.2% of Gen X, 10.5% of millennials, and 20.8% of Gen Z. Which means if we follow this trajectory, we will all be gay in 2054. If you attend a small dinner party of typically very liberal, upper-income Angelenos, it is not uncommon to hear parents who each have a trans kid having a conversation about that. What are the odds of that happening in Youngstown, Ohio? If this spike in trans children is all natural, why is it regional? Either Ohio is shaming them or California is creating them.
Okay, so for all the issues that I have with Bill Maher and his focus on this and him apparently not having a thought about whether there might be regional shaming that is reducing the numbers or whatever, the fact that he can say something like that knowing that his audience is gonna laugh at the joke, was that a joke? Was that a point? Was that witty? Was that incisive? But his audience did like it. He does know his audience. That is the only for many of these political comedians, the skill that they have is knowing what their audience wants to hear. Bill Maher has had it with the fact that people in the LGBTQ community feel like they can acknowledge that. And even if he had, let's say that he had a point. Let's say that there was, for some young people, that they don't know exactly what they're gonna identify as when they're 40, but they briefly think that they're something. One of members of these groups, why does Bill Maher care? Why does Bill Maher, like so many right wingers, care so much about that? If some freshman high schooler calls herself a lesbian and isn't sure enough of that for Bill Maher's standards, why does he care about that? But he does care about that. He really does care, as so many right wingers do. Their life turns based on your self-identification, Francesca.
Absolutely. I mean, again, stop telling on yourself. Like, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that you care about the sexuality of high schoolers and kids? Because that's weird. Or are you trying to say that you yourself are like angry that you don't live or you didn't grow up at a time when it was a little bit minimally more free to come out and be yourself and live your own truth? Is that what's going on here? Right? That you're mad that other people live in a more accepting society, but that's exactly right. That point about either Ohio is shaming them. Yeah, Ohio and many states are consistently shaming trans kids, gay kids for their being themselves. And so it's funny because he's in California, he's filming in LA, and a lot of his audience are tourists who are visiting LA, and they sort of get, barked in from the Santa Monica Pier and sent like free tickets. Straight up, this is how he feels his studio audience, begging them to come in. They're all like Midwesterners who are coming to California and being like, look at all the gays. Meanwhile, their kids are gay and they're trying to shame them. Like, it's just a weird, really bizarre concoction of comedy in the heaviest quotes possible. And it just, again, he's such a resentful boomer.
I know. If you're just get out of comedy before this becomes what you are. Like, he could have just retired with his millions in the late 90s and he wouldn't continually just show us who he is. And Brett is pointing out, like, he talks constantly, Maher does, about not wanting to have kids, but he's really curious about your kids. That is seriously, that is a great point. And by the way, he does that chart where he shows the generations. And notice that he is way more aggrieved by the fact that the current generation says they're 20% LGBTQ when really maybe it's like 18. He's way more aggrieved by that than the generation that was 1%. When that definitely wasn't anything like what it was. And think about all of what was happening socially to suppress those numbers down to there. That doesn't bother him nearly as much, interestingly.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.